It's time to chill out and get ready for a mediocre Q&A live stream. If you're old enough, grab yourself your favorite adult beverage, and if you're not, stick with apple juice. Put your feet up and relax. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them in the chat. And now let's cue up the intro music. Yo, what is up, everybody? How are you guys doing this evening? So I just posted a message in the chat tonight, and if towards the middle, oh, Clint, thank you so very much for that super chat, man. That is awesome. I'm much appreciative of that. If we have equal views and equal thumbs up presses tonight, then I got some cool stuff I'll give away. I've had this this field piece tool bag thing sitting over here. I have some other field piece swag, a hat, like a pullover thing, and I'll probably do some of my hats too. We'll give them away probably in the middle, more towards the end of the show. So as long as you guys keep the thumbs up, the likes or whatever, and the views somewhat equal, then we'll do that towards the end of the show. So hopefully you guys are doing well out there. Life is pretty crazy over here for me right now. We've been super stressful and super busy at work, and it's been kind of nuts, man. I found myself crazy just all last week, and then all this weekend. It just seemed like I had so many difficult service calls, frustrating service calls, and seemed like I was working all weekend. It probably didn't help that my family was gone. My family had gone away on vacation for the weekend, and sorry about that. My webcam went to a new place, and I realized that if I touch my monitor, it shakes. So yeah, my family, my wife and my kids had gone away for the weekend, so they've been gone for like the last 4 days. So that probably didn't help with me being all stressed out and everything like that and not having anybody to come home to. But oh well, that's life. You know, I usually encourage them to do that during the summer, you know, go away for a week or something like that, just especially during my busy time, because I'm usually not home. You know, it sucks for me, but it's good for them because then they at least get to enjoy their summer somewhat. And I don't know about you guys, but you know, where I'm at, summertime keeps getting shorter and shorter for my kids. I think they go back to school in like a few weeks, like 2 weeks or something like that. It's nuts. So, you know, whereas when I was a kid, it's funny because that's starting to get like, you know, I guess I'm old to my kids and stuff, right? I'm 38, but, you know, we went back in September. You know, my kids go back at the beginning of August now. That's crazy how that works, you know, but hey, whatever, you know. So, but yeah, it was definitely pretty stressful. Lots of craziness going on. So, you know, I'm just trying to stay alive. But Sunday was crazy because I didn't get any service calls on Sunday, but I found myself so stressed and so anxious that I was going to get a service call that I was literally checking my phone every few minutes and just waiting for a service call. You know, like I felt like I needed to be doing something. It was weird. It was just a weird feeling, almost like a PTSD thing or something like that. Just, you know, just messing with my head, but whatever. We live, you know, we'll get over it and we'll move on. But I hope you guys are all doing well. You know, I'm thankful, you know, as opposed to last summer when we were dead, you know, because of all the craziness. So at least we got the work now, you know, it's just trying to keep up with it all now. So kind of nuts. So as usual, guys, questions, put them in the chat, put them in caps lock. Okay. That way I know to, I can recognize them easier. If you guys don't put them in caps lock is all capital letters. Okay. But put them in caps lock. That way I can try to get to them. Understand something. You know, if I don't get to your question, you can keep reposting it, but sometimes I don't get to them. Okay. It is what it is. So you can feel free to send me an email to hvacrvideos@gmail.com if I missed your question, and I'll try to get to it. And I just realized right now that before this live stream, I was going through all the YouTube chat trying to find topics, and I never went through the emails. So yeah, I guess we'll have to save that for the next live stream. And these live streams are getting harder and harder to do too with work. It's been nuts, man. It's just been a crazy summer, you know, it is what it is. So, where was I the last 2 Mondays? I was working. I was literally working. It's been crazy. Just lots and lots of service calls, you know? Yeah, it's just been nuts. Just trying to keep up with all the craziness, and it is what it is. So, couple things I want to talk about. Right off the bat, I want to knock something out. I've been trying to help Sporlan promote their Jose Rivera. Thank you so very much for that super chat. You guys are amazing. It's very humbling to get these. Thank you. I know that's your guys' hard-earned money, and I know that you guys are helping to support the channel, but it's still very humbling, and I'm so thankful for that, okay? So thank you very much. So I've been trying to help Sporlan promote their Zoom Lock Max promotion they have going on right now. They really haven't been getting a lot of entries. So guys, if you guys post a picture of the Zoom Lock Max tool, of the Zoom Lock Max fittings in use, in your van, just anything on your social media with the Zoom Lock Max tool, you guys will win some cool swag. And one of the things is going to be a little Leatherman tool that Sporlan is giving away. It's as easy as that, okay? All you have to do is tag Sporlan with the hashtag Team Zoom Lock. That's it, okay? Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, any of those. Just take a picture of any of the Zoom Lock Max products, the Zoom Lock Max tool, the Zoom Lock Max jaws, okay, and tag Sporlan in it, post it on your social media, put hashtag Team Zoom Lock, and you guys will win some Sporlan swag, and you will win a little Leatherman tool. So definitely do that, okay? The 98 DeVille, thank you so very much. I really appreciate, you guys are so crazy, okay? Thank you. I have a comment pinned right there. If we have equal thumbs up and equal views on this video about halfway through-ish, something like that, or towards the end, I'll do a cool giveaway, okay? I'll keep trying to announce that. So, had a couple videos since the last live streams, okay? I actually had 4 videos since the last live stream. It's been crazy, you know? So, it's been, they've been some fun videos, some frustrating videos, all right? One of them was, they said the kitchen AC is a bit warm. That was an interesting one because the customer called and said they had several ACs not working. And of course, everything was dirty. But that was the one, if you guys didn't watch it, where we had a leak in the condenser and I had to do an autopsy on the condenser and cut the thing open, dissect it, get to the refrigerant leak and repair it. And I think it turned out pretty well, okay? But what I really wanted to talk about in that video, and I have it as a topic to talk about tonight too, was at the same time they had a couple things going on. And one of the things was they had a VFD, a variable frequency drive, that was not working in one of their ACs, okay? The carrier package units have VFDs installed on the newer ones. Well, actually, they've already replaced the VFDs with the fancy blue axial fan motor. But before that, they had the VFDs. And we had a real high failure rate, okay? I have some opinions on why those VFDs were failing. I do not have any confirmation, but I mean, you know, the fact that they're installed in the mixed air cabinet where you're getting, you have high condensation, you have high heat in that area, I don't think those VFDs actually have it on some good knowledge that those VFDs are not meant to be in that environment with really high humidity. And that can't help anything. So we've been having to replace a lot of VFDs, but basically after the warranty's over, the customers haven't been wanting to replace those VFDs because the cost is just too high. So they've actually been having us put in contactors and replace the VFDs with just a contactor. And for the longest time, I was having a hard time bypassing those VFDs because it was, you know, I wasn't really into, I didn't really dig far enough in to figure out how to properly install a contactor, but actually it was really easy. I was recently just working on one and I was staring at the unit and I don't know why I kept missing it, but they literally have a wire labeled 24 volt fan call or whatever. It's something like that. It's obvious when you see it, and it's the 24 volt signal going to the VFD. So all you got to do is unplug that. That's your hot leg for your your evaporator fan motor contactor, and then just grab a common, just jump off of another common on one of the other contactors, and your VFD is done. Easy replaced or bypassed, whatever you want to do. It can be temporary or it can be permanent, whatever you want to do. So it's a super easy bypass. Not really something I'm going to show in a video, but it's pretty easy. You guys can figure that one out. So the next video that I had was a late night walk-in cooler call. That was a really fun one for me, and that was a very frustrating one too, because that video, if you guys follow me on social media, was the one where it took literally like 12 hours for me to edit and upload that video, and I was so frustrated. I have a hard time, like I can't give up, like, you know, and it ruined my Saturday night because I was working on the video and then I didn't sleep I was up until like 5 in the morning because I just couldn't give up. I have an issue with that where I just can't stop. I get obsessed with things and I can't stop until it's fixed, you know? So, but I finally got it to upload. But that was a really cool one because it was a compressor failure that had multiple problems. It was a compressor failure, a late night compressor change. But then when I got done with the compressor, we had a problem, and it was, you know, you got to watch the video if you haven't, okay? But it was really interesting. But I do want to say something. So in that video, I made a comment that I was really intrigued by the failure of that compressor, and I wanted to talk to my buddy Trevor Matthews. My buddy Trevor Matthews works for Emerson or Copeland Compressors. He's based in Canada, but he's one of the reps, and he does a lot of training on their compressors, and he's actually really active on social media, very active on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. And see, that's something that I really appreciate about the manufacturers. Sporlan does a great job of it too. They're very active on YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook, and I really appreciate that from the manufacturers because the manufacturers need to realize that people are searching for new education sources, and it's not always feasible for them to make it to a training class. So when these manufacturers, people like Trevor, people like Sporlan, put their information on YouTube, it's really cool because we can consume it 24 hours a day. We can look at it at any given time. Okay. So in talking with my buddy Trevor, I had him watch the video, and spoiler alert, Trevor and I are actually going to work on a project together where we're going to do a little collaboration video where we're analyzing that compressor, okay? And I'm not going to tell you guys what it is, but this is the scroll assembly for that compressor, okay? And there was some really weird round marks on there, and I was really intrigued by those, and I was like, what are they? You know, did something get in the scroll assembly? Was it banging on that? The only thing I'm going to say is no, nothing got in the scroll assembly. And it took 2 seconds for Trevor to look at it, and he knew exactly what that was, and it was really interesting. Another thing that I'm going to point out that I was asking Trevor is, this is the floating seal on the top of that compressor, and I'm not going to tell you guys what, but it's kind of standing out right there. You know, if anybody can really look at it, there's a problem with this floating seal too. And I hadn't pulled this apart in my autopsy. I did not pull this off of the top of the compressor, but when I pulled it out, I saw it right away. I was like, oh, that might explain why we did not have proper compression. So Trevor and I are going to work on something together, and we're definitely going to be talking about it, and we're going to put out some videos. But I definitely want to plug Trevor. If you guys haven't already, please do me a favor and go over to Trevor's YouTube channel. I'm going to post a link in the chat right now, and I want you guys to subscribe to Trevor's YouTube channel and tell him that I sent you over there, okay? Same thing. As usual, guys, just like I was talking about Sporlan, do me a favor, guys, and go over to Sporlan's YouTube channel. Subscribe to Sporlan's YouTube channel. They do a great, great job. Lots of great information on there. I'm going to post a link to it right now. Hold on. And here we go. I will post a link to Sporland's YouTube channel, and I want you guys to go subscribe to Sporland's YouTube channel too, because again, they have great content. Whoops, there we go on there. So there's Sporland's link too. So please go subscribe to both of those. Bear Downs, remember that a scroll compressor does not have a valve. Scroll compressor has a scroll plate that's going to go back and forth, and it's going to compress the refrigerant. So you're on the right track, but it's not a valve that was leaking by on that scroll compressor. Nathaniel Hedge, thank you so very much for that super chat. That is amazing. I am very humbled by that. You are awesome. Thank you so much. Let's see. What else do we got in here? I'm looking at the chat right now. Trevor and Chris getting married. That's pretty funny. I'm gonna have to do Trevor's signature intro. If you guys follow Trevor on his social media, he has a really signature intro that he does on every one of his videos, and it's really catchy. So I'll have to start doing that just to kind of represent Trevor. So yeah, he's a really cool dude. Really nice. It's funny too, because like I messaged him, I think it was Saturday. I was like, hey bro, do you want to work on a collaboration together? And like immediately he was like, heck yeah, I do. And then he called me. He's like, bloop. And then we were talking on the phone, you know, and it was really cool. Really nice dude. So, and we've also had Trevor on the HVAC Overtime YouTube channel too. And it's funny because we all got to talking with Trevor on the HVAC Overtime show. And if you guys haven't already, you're living under a rock. Go subscribe to the HVAC Overtime YouTube channel too. Joe, do me a favor and post a link to the Overtime channel in here. That'll help you from having to fumble around trying to find it. But yeah, when we had Trevor on the Overtime show, we ran out of time. Like we were like, all right, we got to go. And Trevor's like, dude, we didn't even talk about what I wanted to talk about. Like we totally went on for like an hour and 15 minutes or something like that, and then just ran out of time. So we need to have Trevor on the Overtime show again too. If you guys don't know what the Overtime show is, the Overtime show is my buddies, Adam, Joe, and Bill. Bill is Curious HVAC Guy, Joe is HVAC North, and Adam is A-Team Adam, but he doesn't really have any videos up on his YouTube channel anymore. But, you know, we kind of all met through, I don't know how we all met. I think we just started following each other or something like that. But anyways, we all met, and they were doing a show, and then they asked me if I wanted to be on the show. And here we are like a year later or something like that. But we do a show Friday evenings. It's a very uncensored show. It's more of a bunch of guys just talking shop, making fun of each other and stuff. So you probably don't want to watch it with your kids, but grab a beer, hang out with us, and, you know, just come check it out. Friday evenings about 6:05 p.m. Pacific time. Okay. All right. So let's see. J. Leroy Lacey, is it against the law in California to replace a VFD with a contactor? Okay, so that's a great question. Obviously, if you're gonna bypass something in a temporary basis or something like that, sometimes you got to do what you got to do. There is a law that says that when a customer buys a new package unit, depending on the size, typically 2,000 CFMs or more or 5 tons or bigger, you do have to have, due to Title 24 requirements, you do have to have certain energy efficiency things built into the AC. And a 2-speed blower motor is one of the things. Now, what's happened though is they implement these rules. The manufacturer wasn't given very much time. They had to build these units with these fancy devices. Vegas HVAC R guy, thank you so much for that super chat. That's my buddy Chad. Chad, that's his name. Almost positive. I hope that's Chad. I know that's Chad. Yeah. Chad used to live local to me, but he moved out to Vegas. I'm pretty sure that's his name. But thank you so much for that super chat, bud. But yeah, so is it illegal to bypass a contactor? I don't think so. I don't know, though. You know, I mean, I imagine whenever I do it, it's just on a temporary basis, you know? So, you know, you got to do what you got to do. So, you know, whatever. Do as I say, not as I do, kind of a thing. All right. All right. Let's see what else we got going on in here. There's the overtime link in there, guys. Cool. Look at my buddy Scott in here. Scott, you know, this is not the place for a pineapple party, Scott. Come on. No, I'm just kidding. All right. So the last video, or no, then the next video that I had was, it's just an AC. How hard could it be? That was a frustrating one because we went out there as usual. AC was plugged up, dirty. You know, we cleaned up the unit and took us a while to do all that. And then one of the compressors was extremely loud. We found a plugged up dryer. I decided to change the dryer, but then the new dryer plugged up. Oh my goodness, you know? And I was just like, seriously, we were thinking we were closing up the service call, and then we had to spend another 2.5 hours recovering the gas again, changing the dryer. Man, that was a frustrating call because you go through all this work and then you just have to do it all over again. But I wasn't playing games with that one. So I went a little bit crazy and I went and grabbed a massively oversized dryer. Originally it was a 5 cubic inch. When I went out there, it was an 8 cubic inch. I changed it to a 16 cubic inch. And then the 16 cubic inch plugged up. So then I installed a 30 cubic inch dryer. I went nuts on that thing. Okay. And then on top of the 30 cubic inch dryer, I went with a flare and I put ball valves on it just in case we have to change the dryer again. Honestly though, and the customer's replacing that unit, but we had to do something to get it operational. So, and then they had another dryer plugged up and a dirty, we still had a dirty condenser. It was just a frustrating call. And one of the compressors is grounded. That was a tricky one. Okay. Finally, we had yesterday's video, which you guys blew up. Thank you so very much. It was awesome. Let's see. Samurai, thank you so much for that super chat, man. I'm glad you just passed your EPA. That is awesome. That is really cool. It's amazing that these silly videos that I make can help you get acquainted. Of course, they're not going to replace a proper education or anything like that. But I mean, if they can help a new guy like Samurai get somewhat acquainted with a package unit, you know, to where he could impress his boss, that's awesome. This is really cool. Like, it's so humbling to be able to do this and help you guys. But anyways, back to my video from yesterday. You guys blew that video up. That is one of my, as far as like the time frame, I mean, that video has barely been up for a day and a half, and you guys, the views on it are insane. So thank you guys so very much. It's amazing what you guys do when you watch those videos. It's really cool. Okay, so thank you. So that video was titled Damned Tweakers, Part 2, actually. Okay, and I'd been promising that video for a very long time. About, let's see, all the way back in March, I want to say. In March, I got a service call at one of my restaurants, and they said their walk-in freezer wasn't working. The video was called Late Night Walk-in Freezer Call. Okay, and I went out there, and tweakers had gotten in there. All right. Let me phrase that correctly for people not in this country that don't understand the term tweaker. A tweaker, if you look it up in like an Urban Dictionary or something like that, is a reference to people that are drug addicts that'll go to any measures to get a new fix. Okay. So oftentimes we will call a tweaker someone who will go steal the copper from an air conditioning unit so they can get their next fix or something like that. Okay. So that's the term that I'm using, tweakers. All right. So in that walk-in freezer, they stole the copper lines. I spent all night there redoing the copper lines, had to come back the next day anyways. And in the end of the video, or somewhere in the video, I said, you know what? I had a feeling that they might have gotten on the roof, and I was kind of avoiding going on the roof. Well, I went back a couple days later and found out that they attacked every AC on the roof. But they must have gotten caught because they didn't steal the condensers. It looked like they were starting to, but they didn't finish the job. But they broke all the drain lines off, damaged the units beyond repair. The units were old anyways, but they damaged them beyond repair. And so we had to replace them all. And it took forever, all the way from March until June, the middle of June, for us to be able to get the units, replace them. And, you know, then it took me forever to edit the video too. So I finally edited the video and put it up. Okay. Now, one thing I need to talk about right now, because there was a bunch of backlash and comments in my videos, and I'm not going to change anything about my video. Okay. It is what it is. But, first off, a lot of people, I shouldn't say a lot, but there was quite a few people that were giving me feedback, negative feedback, because of the way that I said, you know, or made it sound like the tweakers were bad for what they did. And they were. The tweakers were horrible. Guys, they cost that restaurant, I didn't buy the units. The restaurant buys them themselves, okay? And then I install them, but then the electrician had to come out and do a bunch of electrical work too. And then they had plumbers come in there. So altogether, I'm estimating that job with the rooftop equipment and the repairs that we did to the walk-in freezer and the walk-in cooler cost the customer over $75,000. Okay, it wasn't an insurance claim. The customer paid for it out of their own pockets. Okay, we're not going to go into why they paid for it out of their own pockets, but that's just how it is. They did not claim it on their insurance. So that customer spent their own money to replace all those units because some tweaker got on the roof and stole the copper, because that tweaker felt like he needed it more than that restaurant. Okay. I have no compassion for that person. They're a horrible person, okay? And I don't want my restaurant to have to spend that money unnecessarily, okay? There's a lot of people in the comments too that said, hey, why are you complaining? You got to charge the customer to install the new units. Yes, I did get to charge the customer, but here's the deal. I want my customers to be profitable. I want my customers to be successful. Equipment breaks. If they're profitable and they're successful, their equipment is still going to break and I'm going to be able to go in and repair it, okay? But it's things like this that hurt the customer. I don't want my customer to have to prematurely replace their units or replace them all at once. Okay, yes, these units were ending their life cycle. They were towards the end, but they were still operational. And yes, this is a proactive customer, so they would have started replacing them, but still, this wasn't something that they planned on doing, spending $75,000 replacing all this equipment at one time, okay? As we were coming out of the craziness from last year, this is what they had. They weren't even completely open yet when we found this, when this equipment was, damaged like this. So it sucks. And I don't want my customer to have to spend this money because I want them to be successful and keep being successful for years to come. So that way they can keep using me for their normal repairs. Okay. So that's why I was frustrated. All right. And I do not have any compassion whatsoever for the person, the thief, the tweaker, the whatever that thought that they needed to get up there and ruin this customer's equipment. That sucks, man. There's no excuse for that whatsoever. If they're a drug addict, that's, whatever. I don't have compassion for someone that steals from other people. It's just wrong. Okay. So it is what it is. All right, let me go through my list of things to talk about here and mark them off because I kind of already covered a few of these things. So talked about that, and I talked about that. I have like a list in front of me, and if I don't cross it off, then I wouldn't know what to talk about. So I already answered that one. Oh, this is a good one right here. So in the video, people asked me several times, how come we don't booby trap those units to electrocute the person when they go to steal that copper? Or how come we don't put an alarm on that system that'll notify the customer? How come this? Did the police come and take fingerprints? Did they do this? Did they do that? Guys, number one, we can't booby trap equipment, okay, because that would be inhumane. Yes, I know that we want to do that, but you can't harm someone, like that, okay? You just can't. All right. That, it's just, you'll go to jail for that. So that's not going to happen. Okay. As far as did the customer install an alarm system, all that stuff, that's not really my problem. Okay. I'm there to fix the equipment. If the customer asks me my opinion on things that they can do to protect the equipment, of course I will give them my opinion, but I'm not going to go in there. It's not my responsibility to make the units, set them up to where they can't get stolen or anything like that. That's on the customer. If the customer chooses to do so, then they can ask me and we can go into that route. But at this time, the customer's not doing anything else to prevent it. So it is what it is. Okay. As far as how the thieves got on the roof, that particular location is just in a really bad area. And these guys, it doesn't matter, they lock the building, they lock the ladders, they do everything, but these guys will find a way. Okay. Because it's interesting because if a tweaker put their mind to doing something constructive, it'd be really interesting what they could get away with because they really do have some ingenious ways that their mind works. And I'm not praising him. I'm just saying the things that they will go through to steal $20, $30 worth of copper and the methods that they use to get to that $20, $30 in copper is amazing. Okay. So I got to give them credit for their ingenuity in figuring things out. Those dudes didn't even have tools really either. And it's amazing what damage they can do without tools. So, go figure. All right. Let's see. As far as that AC install goes, let me look at the chat real quick. Yeah, exactly. How come we don't set claymores? Yeah, booby traps are illegal. We can't do any of that stuff. Okay. Why am I tweaker racist? You don't even know the stuff I went through in my comments today too, okay? Let's go ahead and talk about something right now, okay? I'm going to go a little bit personal here, all right? And it's okay because I really have never talked about this kind of stuff, but and I don't take offense from the comments or anything like that, and everybody has their own opinion in the way that they want to think about things, okay? So, I am going to share a little bit of information about my personal life, all right? I grew up in a home where drugs were involved. I grew up being around drugs. I grew up seeing drugs. And it was my mom. My biological mom is a drug addict or was a drug addict. Okay. She lives in a nursing home somewhere now. Right. But, I grew up with that stuff and, I still love my mom, right? She's still the person that raised me. She taught me to be a good person, but she fights drugs. But I don't have I don't make excuses for her, right? She has willpower. She can stop. She's a good person. I've seen her be an amazing person. Okay. So my opinion on the matter is that, you know, she has a problem and that's on her. All right. She's made bad decisions in her life. And I'm not going to defend her and get mad at people if they call her a drug addict or talk about a drug addict or anything like that. Okay. So for people to get angry at me for calling these people tweakers and being mad at them, I don't understand that. Okay. Maybe I have a different way of thinking about things, but it is what it is. Okay. This person that got up onto that roof and stole that equipment, they're not a good person. All right. Could they be a good person? Sure. Right. But they're doing things that are wrong. It's wrong to steal. It's wrong to do all that. Okay. So I don't have compassion for the person. And, you know, I feel bad because they cost my customer a lot of money, hard-earned money. And it doesn't matter how big of a corporation my customer is or anything like that. Stealing is stealing. Bottom line. There's no justification for stealing ever. And I live my life like that. I teach my children that same thing. There's absolutely no justification for stealing. No matter how big the corporation or anything like that. Okay. So we're going to get done with that and we're going to get back onto HVAC talk. So let me see what else we got going on in the chat. Good for you, Justin or Jason. That's amazing, bud. All right. Let me see what else we got in here. All right, cool. So we're going to get on this. Let's talk about a question that I had come in. Would I consider harvesting old parts to use in a bind in the future? No, flat out no. Okay. And let me explain this. If I was a one-man shop and it was just me doing the work, I might consider it. Okay. I might consider holding on to some old parts just to get me out of a bind in a weird situation. But I have employees. When you have employees, there's a lot more stuff that comes into play. When you have employees, you have to assume that your employees are going to make the correct decisions. Putting in their hands to reuse old parts and to be able to troubleshoot to know if those old parts are going to last, if they're going to make the equipment work, just creates a bunch of red flags and a headache for a business owner in the future. Okay. Same thing kind of goes into when people ask me why I don't like using aftermarket parts. I'm going to be completely honest with you guys right now. The biggest reason why I don't like using aftermarket parts is because in order to use aftermarket parts, oftentimes you have to be a very strong technician and you really have to be able to look at the whole picture and make sure that that equipment is working properly. Let's say you put in a thermostat that is not an OEM thermostat and you have to field calibrate it. You have to make sure that the unit is working 100%. It's so much easier to put an OEM part in there because you install it, you set it, and it either works or it doesn't. All right. You don't have to tinker with it. You don't have to, adjust things. So I prefer to use OEM parts because I have employees and it's easier for them and it's easier for me to not have to walk them through things. The same thing goes to using used parts, okay? It's a massive liability. Even if the customer wants it, it's still a headache. If I install a used part, the customer still thinks that I got a warranty. They still thinks that I gave them all this information, and it just bites you in the butt in the long run. So no, I don't use used parts. I don't save any used parts. I don't salvage anything. I don't fix old refrigerators and old air conditioners and try to resell them. It's not worth my time, okay? My time is a lot more important than that, and the amount of money that I make from that kind of stuff is minimal compared to my time with my family and all that stuff. So no, I do not, to answer that question. All right, what personal growth do I look for with my technicians? What I expect from my technicians is to come to work. I want them to be happy. I want them to repair equipment, make sure it's working properly, and I want them to grow. Of course I do, okay? But not everybody's going to grow, and it's okay, all right? I am not a growth company. I am not looking to grow. I've been bigger. I currently have, including myself, I have 4 technicians right now. At the most, I might want 5 technicians because of my workload, but I'm turning down customers left and right now because I don't want any more work. And I don't want to grow my company to become some 100-man shop. I'm not interested in that, okay? I like staying small. I like what I have. So I do not want to grow my company anymore. So as far as my employees go, I want them to be happy. I want them to be compensated properly. I want them to get paid good money. And of course, I want them to grow and better themselves. Okay. So, you know, we talk about things, I make these videos for them, and that's the extent of it. Okay. So hopefully that answers your question. Roughly locations. How many locations do I service? That's a hard question. If I had to guess right now, it's probably 50 to 60 different restaurants that I service. Whether we do routine preventative maintenance or just service work, I'd have to say it's somewhere in the 50 to 60 store mark or something like that. All right. How do I feel about right to repair laws? I mean, I'm not going to get up on a high horse and talk about it because I don't have a huge opinion on the matter. But without thinking about it too much, I feel like people should be able to repair their own equipment. I feel like, you know, there's some manufacturers within our industry that covet their technical information and don't really share it very much. There's a major HVAC manufacturer that does this a lot, and but it's not as bad as some of the bigger people in the right to repair movement that they're fighting against, such as Apple and different things like that. I mean, this particular manufacturer, I'm not going to name their names. If you guys want to name it in the chat, you can. You can get certified on their equipment and you can take classes, but the amount of money you have to spend is nuts. They like their own service technicians to be able to work on their equipment. And even if you are certified, they kind of want you to be one of their technicians to be able to access their software and different things like that. So it is a little bit frustrating, you know, but I feel like, you know, people should be able to repair their own equipment and shouldn't always have to buy new equipment just because something fails or something like that. So I don't know if that answers your question or not. Let's see. But the best company. Okay. So Jason, you said you work for a large company, 350 people, but it's the best company you've ever worked for. Normally large companies are BS. That's great, man. And I have nothing against large companies. I just don't want to be one because of all the chaos that you have to go through with management and all that headaches and stuff. So I got nothing against them at all. So, what's the best technique for cutting open hermetic after the fact diagnosing? An angle grinder. I mean, that's what you need. You need an angle grinder, a couple discs, and if it's a cordless one or a corded one, you need plenty of batteries or plug it in. The first compressor you cut open is going to make a giant mess. Of course, you got to have proper PPE, gloves, glasses, chest protector and stuff like that. If you don't know what I'm talking about, when you're using an angle grinder, just wait till it kicks back and hits you in the stomach. And always make sure that your angle grinder has a guard on it. But even still, you're shooting sparks, you're causing problems. So the first compressor you cut open is going to be a mess. And then everyone after that's going to get better. I'm not perfect at it, but I've gotten pretty good at cutting open the scroll compressors. It's pretty easy without butchering them and being able to have all these parts. It's funny because I've got scroll assemblies laying all over the place in my house. I have one holding open a door. One of these days, I should probably give them to a school or something like that, so that way they can analyze them. All right. Yeah, the company is named in the chat, so let's just go with that. How hard was it managing overtime stream for the first time? I've done the overtime stream once before. It's not a hard time managing it. It's just that my streaming software that I use, which is Streamlabs OBS, I don't have it set up for working with Streamlabs, which hosts the multiple stream people. So I messed up on the audio. So inevitably, I just ended up signing into the overtime channel through Streamlabs, and then we fixed it. But I'm not a genius when it comes to this live streaming stuff at all. Dallas fan, my buddy Ralph is in here. Hey, Ralph, how you doing, man? All right. Let's see. Let's see, as they even have their own warehouses. That's right, you do. Right on, man. All right, when I run into a plugged fixed metering device on an RTU, do you know it's going to be a pain? Get it? Yep. Hey, believe it or not, Laska, you make a joke about plugged fixed orifice metering devices on a Pain unit, right? Because that's an ICP product, Carrier, ArcoAir, Pain, all those different ones. I have 2 of them that my customer approved me changing the entire evaporators for, because they have plugged up metering devices. So actually, I think I'm doing one of them tomorrow. So we'll see if we can get some video footage of that. Let's see. In the tweaker video part 1, you think you saw a multi-tool. What was it? Leatherman charged? Yeah, it is the Leatherman charged titanium. Yes. I keep the Leatherman charged titanium on my side. I've come to really like it. It actually is pretty useful, pretty beneficial. Let's see. What is my favorite Olympic sport? Gymnastics, for sure. I was listening to a radio show recently, and they were talking about the Olympics and how people have an emotional connection to the Olympics. I can remember the first Olympics that I truly watched, and it was in 1994. I think it was in Atlanta, if I remember right. And I remember watching, it was the Summer Olympics. I remember watching the gymnastics, and I remember just being amazed with the gymnastics. And to this day, the gymnastics is still my favorite Olympic sport. It's just a really cool sport. It's amazing. I say it's amazing what those girls can do. I know that there's men that compete in the gymnastics too, but I don't know why. I guess the girls get more attention or something, but it is amazing. The athletes, men and women, what they can do in the gymnastics. It's crazy. So, all right. Let me see what else. What are the Knipex plier wrenches I use? They are just called Knipex plier wrenches, and they're the 6-inch model, I think, or the 7-inch model. I don't have the part number in front of me, but all right. So I already answered that question. I'm crossing some things off my list right now. Do me a favor, guys. Let's see. I have a chat pinned right now. If we get the likes equal to the views, I will do a giveaway. Okay. I have a couple things to give away. So smash the like button. Get it equal to the views. Let's try to get the views up to 400 views if we can. And if we can get that like up to 400 likes, then I'll definitely do a giveaway. The chat, you guys, let me know when we hit 400 views and 400 likes, okay? All right, and then we'll do the giveaway. Let's see what else we got in here. Would I consider selling my used tools when I upgrade? You know, I don't know. I guess it's a possibility. I've never thought about that. I usually pass my tools down to my employees. So I want to talk about something right now. It's interesting. You know, it's kind of a thing. But I get a lot of people, especially from out of the country, asking me how I can still work on R22 systems. How is it that I can do this? How can I work on R22 systems? Well, in the United States, it is not illegal to use R22. In the United States, there is new laws that recently have passed that make it illegal to manufacture and or import new R22 into the United States, but we can still use recovered R22. They can still use R22 that has been saved and is in storage that was new, but they just can't bring any new R22 into the United States, and they can't make any new R22. Okay. So, I still use R22 to this day. Okay. There is alternatives. Basically I give my customers the choice, and I let my customers know the good and the bad, and the things that we might run into, the complications, and majority of the time, my customers choose to stick with R22, even though the price is going through the roof, okay? So I put it on my customers. If my customers want to use an alternative, I will gladly use an alternative, okay? It is what it is, all right? So do I have a moral obligation to stop using R22? I don't feel like I have a moral obligation to stop using it, just the same as any other refrigerant, okay? I use refrigerant. I properly dispose of the refrigerant. I recover it and I take it to the supply house, and the supply house sends it to the recycler. They either clean and reuse the refrigerant and then resell it, and or they dispose of the refrigerant. So I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm not venting it into the atmosphere. You know, so I don't feel like I have a moral obligation to stop using R22. Of course, I put it on my customers, and you have to understand something. When my customers want something, I got to do what they want. Okay. So, it's interesting that my buddy Ralph is in here, because my buddy Ralph works for Honeywell Refrigerants. Okay. And Ralph is always in the chat, and he's always available for everybody that is interested in any R22 and or refrigerant alternatives. We have a lot of new refrigerants being phased out and different things like that, and Ralph is always willing to talk with people. So if you guys have any refrigerant related questions and you want to talk to Ralph, I'm going to put his email in the chat right now. Let's see right here, Control V. This is Ralph from Honeywell Refrigerants. You can feel free to email him, and he can give you guys the good and the bad and the things you're going to have to do to convert over to alternative refrigerants. And this doesn't just concern R22. 404 is being phased out. 410A is being phased out. It's all being phased out. So any alternative refrigerants or refrigerant questions that you have, make sure you email my buddy Ralph, okay? All right. Let's see. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and keep going on my list. So Mark asks, on my AC video where I kept plugging up the filter dryer, Mark had asked me how come I didn't use a suction line filter dryer to protect the compressor. And the key word is protect the compressor. I could have put a suction line filter dryer on that system, but in my situation, the dryer kept getting plugged up, okay? A suction line filter dryer is not going to do a whole lot because my compressor is the problem in that situation. So I don't want to unnecessarily sell something to my customer that they don't need. The compressor oil has been damaged because the condenser has been left dirty for too long. The system has been running high condensing temps, and it cooked the oil and or burnt the oil, and you have carbon and different things in the system. The compressor essentially is on its way out. The compressor is really dead, but it's just hanging on to its dear life, basically. So installing a suction line filter dryer in that situation would not do anything because the refrigerant's being pushed out of the compressor and the contamination is getting stuck at the filter dryer. Now, if we were ruining TXVs and had plugged up TXVs, then that refrigerant might be coming back to the compressor damaged and or, you know, burnt or whatever, and a suction line filter dryer would help in that situation. But in my situation, a suction line filter dryer is not going to do a whole lot. Now, if and when we change the compressor, if the customer chooses to do so versus replacing the unit, then of course I'm going to put a suction line filter dryer on there because we want to protect the new compressor from any contaminants that are in there, okay? Now, why did I not use RX11 flush in that system? Because I'm not a fan of any additives in my systems, number one, okay? But the second thing is if I put an RX11 flush in there, that is going to wash the walls of the copper just like POE oil would, and it's going to clean everything off the copper walls, okay? And that's all going to come back and start plugging up the TXV and different things like that, okay? So I'm not a fan of using the RX11 flush because it can also leave leftover residue basically from the stuff that you put in there, okay? And I'm just not a fan of using the additives in there. I just prefer to leave just oil in the compressor and that's it. All right, so that covers that question. And I also, and the same thing goes for like AC renew. I just don't really need it. If the compressor is making the noise that it's making, it's dead. It doesn't need something to quiet it down. I mean, I put oil in it to try to help it, but that's it. So I want to talk about something that I kind of talked about on the overtime show, and that is using subcoolers on your recovery equipment, or a CPS is a particular manufacturer that makes a subcooler, and they call it a molecular transformator. It's a silly name for it, but essentially it is a liquid subcooler. All right. And what you do is you take that and you put it on the outlet of the recovery machine before it goes to the recovery tank, and you dip it in water, and that will subcool the refrigerant so you're not pushing vapor, and you basically will convert the refrigerant all to a liquid, and then it slows down the pressure building up in the tank and speeds up the recovery time. So why don't I use a subcooler? I actually have one of those CPS molecular transformators, and I just don't see the use in it. I don't see a time saving by using that. What I have done is increased my hose diameter coming from the gauges to the recovery machine, and then coming from the recovery machine to the tank to a 3/8 diameter hose. And I feel that that speeds up the recovery time tremendously, okay? And then if I find that my system pressures are building in that recovery tank too high, then I will dip that tank in ice water and or just running water, and I find that that does the job for me. The other thing, if you want to speed up your recovery time on anything, is take out the Schraders in the system too, okay? So I work regularly out in the Southern California desert where it can get 115 plus degrees, and I can recover 410 on a 115 degree day by just using 3/8 diameter hoses and just putting my tank in ice water, and it does it no problem. Don't need a subcooler. It's, you know, instantaneous. It moves that refrigerant just like that. So I personally don't find the need for a subcooler. Now, you don't have to spend all that crazy money and go buy that molecular transformator if you don't want to. You can. I mean, they're cool. You can also make one. It's really easy. The cool thing about the molecular transformator, if there is anything cool about it, is that it's in a package that protects the copper lines. The other thing about some of those subcoolers is they actually use a smaller diameter pipe. I believe they use 1/4 inch or 5/16, and that's a small diameter. So that's actually more pressure buildup. And another thing about the subcoolers is that refrigerant coming out of your machine, going to the subcooler, then going to the tank, it's going to fill that up and it's going to be trapped in that subcooler. There's really no way to get it out unless you were to ball valve it off and everything. So you're also going to have a lot more refrigerant being vented into the atmosphere when you're using those subcoolers versus just using large diameter hoses. All right. So remember, whenever you pull your recovery machine apart, you typically have refrigerant stuck between the machine and the tank. Well, when you add that subcooler, you can probably have close to a pound of gas that's going to be stuck in there, and that's going to be vented to the atmosphere. So, you know, think about that too when you use that. All right, let's see what else we got in the chat going on here. Let's see. What causes compressor oil in an R22 system to look brown and frothy? Brown and frothy. That's an interesting one. Frothy. I think there's usually a lot of oil in there. That's a good question, though. I don't know the answer to that one right now. Let me see right here what we got going on in here. Don't buy into the hype. I don't know what that's about, but okay, I won't buy into it, Scott. Nylog White is awesome. In use, it on glycol systems, and it's fantastic. I've been using Nylog White on drain lines as a pipe dope for drain fittings, and then on that AC install video, I use Nylog White as my pipe dope for all the black iron gas fittings. It works great. No problems at all. And I know that someone in here had said about getting pipe dope off your clothing. You can use PB Blaster. Yeah, I know there's all kinds of things you can use, but the cool thing about Nylog White is it's clear. And if it does get on your clothes, it's not a big deal. And it washes out in the washer. So awesome, awesome. Yeah, questions in caps. Let me see what else we got going on in here. All right, so I'm going to get to my list of things to talk about. When it comes to that AC install, oh, that was a good question. Ty had asked me a question about, because I showed in the video how when I do gas lines, because I don't have a pipe thread or anything like that, so I just go buy multiple sizes and use what I have and then take back. So Ty had asked me, you know, when I bill out my time, like, do I account for that time of having to return materials in the job? And yes, okay. So it doesn't always happen this way, but when I did that AC install where I installed 5 ACs, that was a simple time of materials. That was not a quote. But even if I did quote it, I would quote it and then add extra time. So what I did on that job was I billed out all my time that I had involved in the job, and then I talked to the customer and they understood that I figured that we were going to have some back and forth time, little things, you know, adjusting things and playing with thermostats, getting into their happy set point. So I added 8 hours to the bill and then billed out all my time. So I billed for all of my time, all of my employees' time, the crane and everything out of time and materials, marked up my materials and all that stuff. And then I added 8 hours labor to it and billed the customer. And we did have to do a return visit and make adjustments. And I'm still going to have to go back and put an outside air, or actually I did. I went back and put the outside air damper on that AC. So that way we still accounted for all that time. So yeah, I bill for all my time. I'm not going to play these games and not get paid for my stuff. So even if it comes to a quote, if I quoted that job, I would have quoted it even higher because I always do that. I always quote high, and I'd rather quote high and then come back and say, hey, you know what? It didn't cost as much or something like that. But my quotes are always extremely high. And then that way I can come back in and look really good and say, you know what? I didn't use all the time. I'm not going to bill you for all the time. And I do that quite often. If I quote my customers, you know, a $5,000 job and it only takes me $4,000 in materials and labor, then I'm only going to charge them the $4,000. I don't charge them the full, whatever the quoted amount was. So on the flip side, if I ever needed to go over a quote, I would expect my customers to understand that. And all the customers that I do work with, they would understand that. So James had asked me a question about makeup air units. And he asked me if we are required to have the makeup air units come on when the hoods come on. And I would say yes. Yes, you are. Okay. If you don't understand what makeup air is, if you have a building that has exhaust fans, those exhaust fans are pulling the unwanted air out of the building. That air might have smoke, it might have smells, whatever, okay? We pull that air out of the building. Well, if you take a paper bag and you put it around your mouth and you suck the air out of it, the bag is going to collapse, okay? But if you cut a hole in the bottom of that bag, the air will pass right through the bag and the bag won't collapse anymore. That's my best example of makeup air. When we have a building and we're exhausting the air out of that building, we have to put air back into the building or we're making it a negative air pressure. So if you've ever been to a restaurant and you go to open the doors and they're really hard to open, and then when you open them finally, you have to pull really hard, all of a sudden the air rushes in the door. That building was in a negative air balance, and they obviously did not have the proper amount of makeup air coming back into the building, okay? So Are makeup air units required to come on at the same time as the exhaust fans? And the answer is yes. Okay. Now, there's some massive safety issues if you have direct fired makeup air units. Okay. Direct fired makeup air units have a heat exchanger where the fire, the flame, the combustible gases are going directly into the air. I shouldn't say a heat exchanger. They have combustible gases going directly into the airstream, and there is no heat exchanger. Okay. So on direct fired, you have a massive safety issue there where they need to have interlocks built into that. So that way the exhaust fans or that makeup air could not turn on if the exhaust fans are not running. So oftentimes they will have pressure sensors in those direct fired makeup air units that will not allow that to fire unless the exhaust fans are running. So, but on typical ones that just have swamp coolers and things like that, yeah, the makeup air should be coming on at the same time as the exhaust fans for sure. And in my situation, I talk about it in my restaurant videos all the time, where a lot of my restaurants use the air conditioning units as the makeup air units. So they will have an interlock device built into the hood system that sends a signal to the air conditioner that puts it into the occupied mode. And then the air conditioning units will be programmed appropriately. So that way when they go into the occupied mode, it will run the indoor fan 100% full throughout the day, basically. So that way it acts as a makeup air unit. And then the cooling and heating will stage on and off via the thermostat. So if that makes sense to you guys. Let's see. I covered that question. Oh, the biggest question of the day. Oh my gosh, guys. I kid you not. It was probably asked over 100 times. How come I used copper drain lines? Guys, I'm going to say right now, we got 440 views and 342 likes. Get that like count up to 400 and I'll do this giveaway, guys, okay? Get that like count up. All right, so why did I not use PVC instead of copper? Because if I used PVC, the tweakers wouldn't have anything to steal. Okay, I'm going to tell you guys right now, my experience with PVC drain lines is that they just become a problem later down the line. The California sun, the UV exposure, disintegrates that PVC. It becomes brittle. People dragging a hose across the roof, they rip the PVC drain lines off, they crack them, they break them. My experience with PVC as a drain line, it sucks. Okay, I prefer copper. Same thing goes with ice machines. If I'm installing an ice machine, it's getting copper drain lines, not PVC. I know PVC is fast and quick and easy, but guess what? Have you guys ever worked on an ice machine that you had limited or no access to the back of the ice machine and to the sides of the ice machine, and one of the cooks busted the PVC drain line underneath it when they were trying to squeegee underneath it and clean the floors? Yeah, I've had that happen too many times to count, and it sucks trying to repair those PVC drain lines when you have to drag the whole bin out to be able to get to it. So whenever I install drain lines, they're copper, whether they be on ACs and or ice machines. I try to stay copper as much as possible, walk-ins and all that stuff. PVC in my eyes just becomes a problem. So let's see what else we got going on in here. Covered that. Why don't we drain our condensate on the roof? Here in Southern California, we have lots of environmental rules. Our water inevitably goes to the ocean. Our wastewater goes to the ocean. It does sometimes go through wastewater treatment facilities, but if we are close to the ocean, which I work in a lot of coastal cities too, the storm drain water literally dumps into the ocean without even being cleaned, okay? So we have all kinds of code requirements that say we need to trap our condensate and plumb it into the sewer so that way it can be treated before that water makes its way out to the ocean, okay? So they even get really extreme in some of the coastal cities, and they don't even want you to use coil cleaner. If you do have to use coil cleaner, they want you to put down these giant things and collect all the coil cleaner and dispose of it. It's nuts what you have to do. I don't deal with any of that crap though. So, all right, there goes that. And there goes that. And let's look at the chat and see what we got going on in here, okay? Oh, 393 likes, guys. We are so close. Smash that like button. Get it up to 400, and I got a giveaway going on. So, all right, let's see. As a SoCal guy, you totally understand, and you commented on that to the people who asked. Jason Johnson. Yeah, it's just PVC is a nightmare when it comes to drain lines. And guys, if it can, it will, okay? I know dragging a hose across the roof, someone's going to snap a PVC drain line. It's just a nightmare. And there's nothing worse than someone kicking and breaking a PVC drain line below the roof deck. I actually just had a customer do that. He went up and tried to fix his own drain, and he busted the drain line below the roof deck. And I was like, dude, I'm not a plumber, bro. I'm going to drain it on the roof, and you got to figure that out and get a plumber out here to fix it. So, all right, let's see what else we got in here. Do I service any ice cream machines? No, I do not. All right. So you guys just hit the 400 likes and you just hit the 400 views, or more than 400 views. So I take you what right now, you guys start commenting, and I'm going to go ahead and pick a couple viewers. I've got a field piece hat and a pullover jacket thing. It's like a windbreaker thing. I'll send that as one item. And then I have a field piece backpack right here that I'll send as one item. And then I'll give away one of my hats too. Okay. So here's the deal. If I pick your name, I need you to send me an email to hvacrvideos@gmail.com. I'm going to pick 3 of you guys. Okay. So start chatting right now, and I will pick someone. It'll be through the Nightbot moderator. It'll pick someone in the chat. So go ahead and start chatting, and I'll pick a couple of you guys. Like I said, we're going to pick 3 of you guys. So the first person that I'm going to pick is going to win the field piece backpack. It's a tool bag. It's got all kinds of fancy stuff to it. So, all right, first person I pick right now, I'm going to go ahead and draw it, and your name's going to be called up. Matt Heebs. Matt, Heebz. You win the field piece backpack, okay? So, Matt, you need to send me an email to hvacrvideos@gmail.com, okay? And I'll give 2 more things away right now. Matt Heebs, backpack. All right. And then we're going to go ahead and do the field piece swag next, which is a hat and a pullover thing. I'm going to pick someone right now. Here's the next person. Mark Miller. You win the field piece hat and field piece pullover thing. Okay. Mark Miller, make sure you send me an email to hvacrvideos@gmail.com. Mark Miller, field piece hat. I'm writing this down right now. All right. Field piece hat. All right, and last is the HVACR Videos hat, okay? So if any of you guys are interested, if you go to my website, hvacrvideos.com, we have the hats available, shirts available, beanies, hooded sweatshirts. They're zip-up hoodies, really nice, high-quality hoodies. We have a couple different shirt designs, okay? But anyways, I'm going to pick the last person right now, and you're going to win one of my hats. Alex Sutton, Sutton, Alex Sutton, send me an email to hvacrvideos@gmail.com. Tell me what size hat you want. And actually, for everybody that won, that's it. You guys can stop commenting. That's the 3 things I'm going to give away tonight. I need shipping addresses for everybody too. All right, Alex Sutton, I need to know what size hat you want, small, medium, or large, extra large. As far as the field piece hat goes, it's just one size. It's a large, extra large. So you guys can stop chatting right now. Stop chatting. Alex Sutton, you guys need to send me an email. HVACR hat. Okay, cool. And we're going to go ahead and get to the chat and do normal stuff now. So let me go ahead and get to the chat here. Holy moly. I got to catch up with the chat. It's been going crazy for a minute. Make sure you guys send me emails. Again, any of the winners. That was Matt Heebs, Mark Miller, and Alex Sutton. You guys each won something. Send me an email with your address. And then Alex Sutton, I need to know what size hat you want, bud. All right. Come on. This chat needs to catch up. It's way behind right now. What the heck? All right. There we go right now. All right. Is heat blocking compound better than an actual wet rag? How long is it reusable? So as far as the heat blocking compound, it lasts for quite a while. Is it better than a wet rag? Sometimes, in some instances, yes, it is better than a wet rag, because if you're using a wet rag and you're brazing something above you, the water drips down and causes a problem. Or if the wet rag is really close to where you're brazing, it causes steam and can compromise your braze joint. So the heat blocking compound is beneficial in that matter. Now, there's times though that I'll just use a wet rag, like an actual wet rag, because it's easier. Of course, I'll do that sometimes too, okay? But yes, I prefer the heat blocking compound. My favorite is the Hvacr wet rag by Refrigeration Technologies. It's just great. It's not going to hurt you. It doesn't have any cancer causing substances in it. It's, you know, kosher, all that stuff. So Refrigeration Technologies makes amazing products. All right. Let's see. What did the crane cost for that job? You used a crane a few years ago for a 15-ton unit, cost about $300 for about 25 minutes. R134A hole, honestly, I don't remember. Cranes can cost anywhere from $250 to $800 for the cranes that I typically use, just depending on the job. They typically have, how many things can I use there? Adjectives or whatever. They will have a certain minimum time frame. So typically it's a 2-hour minimum, depending on the size of the crane. But the bigger ones, I've seen them 4 or 6 hour minimums, depending on the size of the crane. So it really depends, but I don't remember off the top of my head right now. Did I ever have a non-paying customer? If so, what did I do? Police Gaming 101 YouTube. Yes. I've talked about this before. I was working at a bar one time, and the customer called me out there, and they didn't do routine maintenances on the equipment, and they had an ice machine behind the bar that wasn't working, and it was in really, really bad shape. It was so dirty. I told the lady, I said, I have to clean this machine before I can even diagnose it. And as I was cleaning the machine, I could see that the evaporator was trashed. So I finished cleaning the machine, and I tried to let it go through a cycle. I maybe spent 2.5, 3 hours, whatever, cleaning it. And I tried to let it go through the cycle, and it wouldn't make ice. So I told her we were going to have to replace the evaporator on it, and she wasn't happy. And she proceeded to try to talk crap to my face in front of her customers because we were behind the bar, and she was telling me how I was a ripoff and I shouldn't charge her money. And I felt very good to be able to fire her as a customer. I took the bill, I ripped it up in front of her face, and I told her to lose my number. I used a few expletives in front of her customers and her, and told her to never call me again, and walked out the door. So yes, there's been other times too that we've had to send customers to collections and different things like that. But for an invoice for like $400, I'm not going to take that to collections because it's going to cost me 5 times as much to be able to try to collect that money. So, had to hook a backup generator at a local food market today. Oh, that's interesting, man. Does heat compound leave any residue like the heat trap spray? No, Andy. The heat blocking compound does not leave a residue like the heat blocking spray, but you still don't want to get the heat blocking compound on the surface that you're going to be brazing on. But it's just some sort of a paper filler material, something to make it sticky, kind of tacky, and water. That's all that's in the heat blocking compound. So no, it does not leave any weird residues or anything like that. See what else we got going on in here. Not sure if I answered this, but just wondering how the RTU units are attached to the curb adapter, or is it just gravity? Silk Dragon, typically we'll have like seismic straps, whether they be on the inside or the outside of the unit, running down, connecting it to the curb adapter, and then from a curb adapter to the roof. They might call them hurricane straps in the coastal areas like Florida and stuff like that, but they typically have some sort of strapping material, preferably on the outside of the unit, not on the inside of the unit. I know that some people ask that question in my chat. If you've never tried to change a package unit and it didn't lift up, you're lucky. I've done that before, and then you go to lift it, and the crane, when you see the crane operator's eyes get really big because he's lifting and the unit's not moving and he's got a lot of weight on that, he's getting scared. You got to pay attention to the crane operator, and you got to have a good communication with him. I've had to go over to units where customers or previous contractors have literally glued the units down. They put mastic down and, liquid nails and different things like that. It's crazy. So no, you don't want to glue the units down or screw the units down from the inside, because that's a nightmare. I actually did one recently too, where I went to go lift a package unit off and it looked okay. And if you go rewatch my video again, that's why you see my technicians, because I was signaling the crane. I was the signal person. And, sitting on the parapet wall or standing on the ladder. And when we lift the units up, we always lift them up about 4 inches, and then we stop. I always stop the lift, and then my guys inspect. They look underneath the package unit to see if we missed any conduits, to see if any screws or anything like that are in the way, because you'll find weird stuff connected to the units. And recently I was lifting a package unit. I don't have a video of it, but we went to go lift the unit, and the ductwork started coming with it. And what had happened was, when they originally set the unit like 10 years ago, they made some errors in their sheet metal fabrication for the ductwork and the curb, and it wasn't right. And they got into the unit and patched it all up from the inside. So unfortunately, I had to cut all that crap out and do the same thing, because I wasn't going to redo the entire ductwork system on the building. So yeah, it was a nightmare. But I made sure that when I did all the sheet metal work underneath the curb adapter. It wasn't attached to anything, and you could still lift up the curb adapter and the unit without pulling up the sheet metal from the building. So, all right. Do I recommend starting a HVAC company in Palm Springs or La Quinta? Tony, the developer. I'm going to tell you something right now. There is more HVAC companies in the Coachella Valley than it's nuts how many HVAC companies are out there, okay? It's interesting, too, because there's HVAC companies in the Coachella Valley. That's the Palm Springs area, for those of you guys that don't know. That's our low desert in Southern California. I do a little bit of work out there. I have like 3 restaurants I service out there. But there's so many HVAC companies that it's a seasonal thing. There's companies that literally close down in the wintertime and do landscaping work in the winter and then HVAC in the summer. Like, it's kind of crazy, the concept there. There's guys that just stop doing HVAC in the winter because it dries up out there. It calms down so much. So, of course, I want you to be successful and start a business for sure, but you need to understand something. There's a lot of competition out there. Also, the talent pool to dip from in the low desert is a little difficult. Okay, so that's all I'm going to say. There's a lot of drugs, and I'm not saying everybody's on drugs, but there's a lot of drug use, and it's hard to hire employees in the low desert. There is a reason why a lot of the large national chain restaurants, K-stores, drug stores, department stores and different things like that hire companies from the Inland Empire and pay them to drive to the Coachella Valley, because there is good companies out there too. Don't get me wrong, but there's a lot of shady people out there. So just keep that in mind. If you're planning on hiring a bunch of employees and stuff like that, make sure you're doing drug tests and not just threatening drug tests. Make sure you're actually doing drug tests, but then also understand the implications of doing drug tests, because you're going to find it and you're going to have to fire them. So anyways, that's all we're going to go into on that. You are silently judging everywhere's filter replacement schedule. Yeah. Clamp meter suggestions. I really, really love the field piece. What is it? The SC480. That's my favorite meter. It's a tiny compact meter. I believe it's the SC480. That's the one that I use every day, and I love it. It works great for me. Now, it really depends on what kind of stuff you're working on. If you're working on heavy industrial, working on a lot of automation systems, a lot of VFDs and things like that, then I'm probably going to encourage you to go with a more scientific meter, a little bit more expensive, maybe a higher end Fluke model, okay? Power analysis and different things like that. Yeah, you're going to want to go with a higher end meter. But for what I do, light commercial refrigeration and air conditioning, and even commercial refrigeration and air conditioning, the field piece meters are just fine, okay? But it just depends on the kind of work that you're doing. Let's see what else we got in here. Do I deal with HERS testers? No, I mean, if you permit a job, then of course you got to do third party HERS rating, but typically don't have to deal with them too much. So, HER testers. So Justin, I see Justin was asking him. So a HERS rater in Southern California is actually a code requirement. They're a third-party auditing company. And what they're supposed to do is they're supposed to come in and audit a permitted installation to make sure that the installing contractor did his job properly and that the existing equipment is performing to the manufacturer's spec and that the ductwork is performing properly, and all that stuff. California has some crazy requirements, and I'm going to tell you a little story. A buddy of mine, I'm not going to name him. He might be watching, he might not. But a local company of mine, or a local buddy of mine that has an air conditioning and refrigeration company called me the other day. I shouldn't say the other day. A couple months ago, called me and said, hey, I got a question. He goes, I'm doing a walk-in replacement, and the city got involved. And, well, first off, he said, do you recommend me getting the city involved? And I said, legally, you're supposed to get the city involved. You're supposed to pull a permit to change the walk-in. So I said, but I'm going to warn you, when you do that, here's what's going to happen, okay? And the worst case scenario happened. This is a little Mexican restaurant. It's a family-owned business, maybe been open for 30 years, and the city got involved in their walk-in installation. And I told my buddy, I said, if the city gets involved, they're going to make them bring that entire building up to code. And they did. So they had to pull new fire sprinklers for the walk-in. Okay, I get it. They're replacing the whole walk-in box. I get it. They got to do the fire sprinklers. They got to bring it up to code there. But then the city wanted them to bring the rest of the building up to code. We're talking ceiling tiles, nowhere near the walk-in. We're talking flooring. We're talking everything in the building that was not up to code. Because they pulled a permit on one thing, they had to bring the entire building up to code. I asked my buddy all these different things. I go, dude, they're going to have to spend like 20, 30 grand besides the money they spent on the walk-in to bring that building up to code. And he goes, yeah. And it's just frustrating for that poor business. And then I asked my buddy, I said, and this is the hypocrisy of the way we do things here. I said, doesn't that restaurant get inspected by the health department every single month? And he goes, yeah. And I go, how long has that building been in business? He goes, 30 years. And I go, so that health department's been coming there for 30 years every month and checking the building out, making sure. And then now they're making them bring all this stuff up to code. It was just, it was ridiculous. It was ridiculous. So we have a lot of weird political crap here. It's nuts. So let me see what else we got in here. You just bought a nice signal generator for controls and troubleshooting. Nice, dude. All right. I mentioned Friday my smart probes bag. How many probes do I keep? Right now I have JobLink probes. So I have enough to do a system with 3 compressors. So that'd be high pressure, low pressure. So that's 6, right? And then you have 3 air probes. You have return air, supply air, outside air. And then you have temperature clamps for each stage. Discharge, suction, liquid. And then I have some miscellaneous air probes for when I'm working on reaching coolers that have multiple evaporators. That way you can check TXVs and different things like that. So I have quite a few probes in my probe bag for sure. That was an interesting diagnosis and repair. I nailed it. Thank you very much, bud. Does my meter know proper phase leg locations? David, yes. The SC480 has a phase rotation testing function in it. Yes, I've showed it in many videos. I love it. You basically have a phase rotation setting. You put 2 leads on line 1 and line 2, and it'll say line 3. Then you take the lead off of line 2 and put it on line 3, and it'll either say line 1, 2, 3, which is the correct phase rotation, or it'll say line 3, 2, 1, which is a backwards phase rotation. So then you power it down, interchange any 2 leads, and then you'll have the correct phase rotation. So yes, the field piece meter does phase rotation. The SC480 and the SC680 both do phase rotation. The 98 DeVille, thank you so very much for that super chat, man. That is amazing. You guys are so awesome. Let's see. When is Field Piece going to let me connect probe for outside air temp? Rich, unfortunately, I don't think there's any way for them to modify the manifold. That was something frustrating to me when they came out with that manifold the first time. I was like, why didn't you guys make it capable of doing remote temperature? You can only do wired on the field piece manifold. Now, I've never asked them that, but just knowing the way that it's set up, I don't think it's possible. It would be neat if you could upgrade it. And if one of you guys sends me an email and remind me to ask Field Piece if that's possible. So one of you guys send me an email to hvacrvideos@gmail.com and remind me to get a hold of my contacts at Field Piece and ask them if that's something they would be interested in doing and making the newer S-Man manifold, the 480V, capable of doing wireless outdoor air temperature reading. That would be really cool. I don't know if it's possible though with the hardware they have inside of it or not. What can cause refrigerant to get burnt? Typically an electrical fire within the unit. When the compressor windings short out and arc inside the compressor between the oil and the refrigerant, it can burn the oil and cause problems. Or if you have bad oil, that can be because it's been overheated too long because you've had high condensing temp, dirty condensers and stuff like that. So let me see what else we got in here. For the probes, not the manifold. Oh, for the probes. I'm confused, Rich. Don't they do outside air temperature for the probes? Can't you do wireless? I'll have to look at that, Rich, because I don't use the JobLink app very much. I typically use Measure Quick, which has outside air. So I'll have to look into that, Measure Quick, or Rich. I'll have to look and see, because it's been a while since I've done the JobLink app. And I thought you could do outside. I thought you can, Rich. I'm almost positive you can use the outdoor air probe for with the JobLink app, because you do target superheat that way. I'll have to try to check it out and see. All right. What else do we got? Do I think Field Piece is better than Sporlan for use with Measure Quick? Oh, you mean the Sporlan Smart Pro R probes? No, I actually think that the Sporlan Smart Pro R probes and the Field Piece JobLink probes are pretty comparable. I've used them both. I have them both in my troubleshooting bag. The Sporlan Smart Pro R probes actually have a benefit that the Field Piece don't, and they're temperature compensating. So they are actually better in some ways than the field piece job link probes. And the communication through walk-in freezers and walk-in coolers, I actually find is a little bit better with the Sporlan probes. So no, there's benefits to both for sure. Really appreciate you, Ralph. See you later, bud. Make sure you guys email Ralph if you guys have any questions for sure. Okay. I will post Ralph's email in here again real quick, and he's with Honeywell Refrigerants. If you have any refrigerant related questions, make sure you send Ralph an email. Interesting, John Cruz. Yeah, I'll have to look into that. I don't know why they didn't do that if that's the case. I'll look into it. It's been a while since I've used the JobLink app. Yeah, that's not good at all. I'll talk to them about that. I will definitely talk to them about that. All right. Well, guys, am I getting the Vito Wheeler Watson 407? Spoiler alert, I've had the Vito Wheeler bag for about 3 months now. So I've had some pretty good time working with it, and I think it's about time that I do a review video on it. I will tell you right now that the Vito Wheeler bag has some really cool features, but then it has a lot of negative features too. I'm going to make a video about it on the Tools channel. That's called HVACR Tools. There's a link in the show notes of this video. It's not going to be this week, but I'll make a video soon on it. But yeah, I've had the Vito Wheeler bag for quite a while now. So it's nice, but there's some bad things too. So, all right. I am really, really going to get out of here. I really appreciate you guys. My family actually just got home today. They've been gone for 4 days. They came home just before the live stream. So I'm going to go spend some time with them, have some dinner. And we're going to wrap this one up. Remember that I go live on the HVAC Overtime YouTube channel with my buddies on Friday evenings about 6:05 p.m., work permitting, but they still go live without me, okay? And we kind of recap the week. So if you guys haven't already, please check out the HVAC Overtime YouTube channel. Subscribe to it. You'll help us out. Remember, I said in the very beginning, Sporlan has a promotion right now. If you guys have the Zoom Lock Max tool, if you guys have used the Zoom Lock Max tool, take a picture and post it on your social media. Tag Sporlan with the hashtag #TeamZoomLock with that picture, and you'll get some cool Sporlan swag and a Leatherman tool. So it's really easy for you guys to do. Take a picture of your Zoom Lock fitting that you've installed, something like that, okay? And send it over to Sporlan or tag them on social media. Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and I think Twitter too. So any of those, tag them on there with the hashtag #TeamZoomLock, and you'll get that cool swag sent out to you, okay? I really, really appreciate you guys. I am going to wrap this one up. We're going to cue up the outro music right now, if I can figure this out. Let's see how smart I can be with my stream. And here comes the outro music, and we will catch you guys on the next one. Wrong one. Oh, I guess you're getting that outro music today. If you want the 80s dance, I'll give you the 80s music. Here's the 80s music. There you go. How about that? Smooth jazz. I am going to give you guys a little teaser here. All right? For those that are left, that are still in the chat, I'm going to tell you guys that in the next few months, you guys need to pay attention. Okay? You need to pay attention to my social media. You need to pay attention to random people's social media. And you need to pay attention to my friends' social media. Okay? Now, let me be very... How do I want to say this? There's going to be something really cool coming. Either on my social media, either on a random person's social media that does not know me, or on my friend's social media. Okay? It's getting to be about that time where I need to start getting ready for something big coming at the end of the year. Okay? Can any of you guys in the chat guess about what that big thing might be coming? Now, again, I'm going to give you a teaser as we're exiting out of this right now. Okay? So, this is going to go away. This is going to go away. And I'm just going to play a little music.